Welcome to today's explainer. Okay, I want you to picture something for just a second. You're standing right in front of the butcher counter at your local grocery store, right? You're staring at all those labels, tenderloin, brisket, shank, and honestly, it can be kind of overwhelming. Well, today, we're going to completely decode that butcher case together. I'm going to take this nice and steady so that by the time we finish, you'll know exactly what you're buying and more importantly, exactly how to cook it. Let's dive right in. Here's our quick menu for today's explainer. We'll start with the golden rule of meat, then break down beef cuts, move on to lamb and pork essentials, decode chicken cuts, and finally, we'll wrap up by testing your culinary knowledge. All right, section 1, the golden rule of meat. Muscle usage dictates tenderness. So before we get to that golden rule, let's just make sure we're on the same page. A meat cut is, simply put, a portion removed from the carcass of an animal during butchering. That's the textbook definition. But the real magic? That happens when you understand what that specific part of the animal was actually doing while it was alive. Here's the thing. You absolutely don't need to memorize a giant list of cuts if you just grasp this one basic biological fact. Muscles that are used less give us much more tender cuts of meat. But on the flip side, the hardworking muscles yield tougher cuts. And here is the crucial trade-off. Those tougher, hardworking muscles pack a ton more flavor. It's a balancing act, right? Tenderness versus really rich flavor. Let's map this out with a super easy trick. Think about the front and the legs of the animal, like the shoulder or the shank. They experience a lot of movement, holding the animal up, walking around. Because of all that work, the meat is tough. So you absolutely have to use slow cooking methods like braising or stewing to really break down those muscle fibers. Conversely, the middle of the animal, the loin and the ribs, they experience barely any movement. That meat is naturally tender. It's literally perfect for quick cooking, grilling, frying, or roasting. Keep this rule in your back pocket, and I promise you'll never ruin a piece of meat again. Okay, moving on to section 2, breaking down beef cuts. We're applying that golden rule to beef. Let's walk through the first 4 major beef cuts, starting with the chuck, which is the shoulder. Now, because it's the shoulder, it's a hardworking muscle. Tough, yes, but incredibly rich in flavor. This is exactly why it's your go-to for hearty stews, pot roast, and minced beef. Next up, the rib. Now we're in the middle of the cow, which means less work. This makes it super tender, perfect for a grilled ribeye or a classic prime rib. Right behind that is the short loin, again in the middle, giving us those premium, very tender steaks like the T-bone and strip loin. And finally, the tenderloin. I mean, the name really says it all, doesn't it? This muscle does practically zero work. It's the absolute most tender cut on the cow, ideal for a pan-seared filet mignon. Moving slightly further back, we hit the sirloin. This one offers a really great balanced profile, nice tenderness, good flavor. It's fantastic for everyday steaks and roasting. Next is the brisket. Now, think about our golden rule for a second. The brisket is the chest muscle. It's holding up a massive amount of weight, so it's heavily used and very tough. That's why it absolutely demands slow cooking, smoking, or braising. Seriously, if you try to quick grill a brisket like you would a ribeye, you'll literally be chewing on shoe leather. Below that is the plate, sitting right under the ribs. This gives us really flavorful cuts like short ribs and skirt steak, making it a fantastic choice for your next barbecue or a plate of sizzling fajitas. Wrapping up our beef cuts, we've got the flank. It's quite lean and excellent for stir fries or a quick grill. The absolute key here, though, is that you have to slice it against the grain to keep it tender. Next is the round, coming from the back leg. Lean, hardworking, and commonly used for roast beef or lean ground beef. Finally, the shank. This is the leg muscle. Think about how much a cow walks. Because of that constant, nonstop movement, the shank has a ton of connective tissue. Now, you wouldn't eat it as a steak, but that heavy connective tissue makes it the undisputed champion for rich stocks, deep soups, or slow-braised dishes like ossobuco. Let's slide into section 3, lamb and pork essentials, from chops to bacon. So even though a lamb is obviously much smaller than a cow, the exact same logic applies here. The working muscles, the shoulder, leg, breast, and shank, need those slower cooking methods. You're going to roast or stew the shoulder, slow roast the leg, and braise the breast and shank. But check out the middle cuts, the rack and the loin. Barely any movement. That's why we can take a delicate rack of lamb, or a lamb chop from the loin, quickly sear it, and get a wonderfully tender, melt-in-your-mouth dinner. All right, let's talk pork. And this is definitely going to make you hungry. The pig's shoulder does a lot of work, right? So we cook it low and slow to get that perfectly tender pulled pork. The loin, right in the middle of the back, doesn't work hard at all, which gives us quick cooking pork chops. Then there's the belly, wonderfully fatty, super rich, and yep,
that's exactly where we get our bacon. The back leg gives us hams for roasts and deli meats. We've got the ribs for classic BBQ. And finally, the hock, down at the bottom of the leg. Just like the beef shank, the pork hock works incredibly hard, making it the perfect flavor builder for big, hearty soups.
Section 4. Decoding chicken cuts. White meat versus dark meat.
Chicken is just beautifully simple when you apply our rule. Chickens don't really fly, right? So their breast muscles are practically unused. This gives us lean, white meat that's very tender, but it demands really quick cooking so it doesn't dry out. Contrast that with the thigh and the drumstick. Chickens spend all day walking and running. Those leg muscles are working constantly. This turns them into juicy, highly flavorful dark meat that can totally withstand longer cooking times. And just to round it out, the wing is perfectly sized for quick frying, and if you leave the thigh and drumstick attached together, you've got yourself a whole leg.
Section 5. Test your culinary knowledge. Let's see what you remember.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, so let's do a quick, fun pop quiz. I want you to answer out loud or just in your head. First question. Thinking back to the middle of the cow, which is the absolute most tender cut of beef you can buy. I'll give you a second to think about it. Got your answer? It's the tenderloin, because it sits nestled right near the spine and does almost zero work during the animal's life. It's just remarkably tender. And this is, of course, the exact cut famous for filet mignon. Question number 2. We talked about a really tough chest muscle that requires hours and hours of slow cooking. Which cut is traditionally used for BBQ brisket?
Well, it's kind of right there in the question. The answer is the brisket. Remember, it's holding up the heavy chest of the cow. If you don't slow cook or smoke it, it's going to be incredibly tough. Question number 3. If you're making a deep, rich stock or a hearty soup, which heavily worked leg cut should you be asking your butcher for? That would be the shank. All that constant walking builds up an incredible amount of connective tissue. When you simmer that really slowly, it melts down and creates a beautiful, rich, gelatinous stock. And our final question for today, and honestly, arguably the most important one. When you're eating breakfast, which specific cut on the pig is giving us our delicious bacon? It is the pork belly. It's a delightfully fatty, rich cut from the underside of the pig, perfectly suited for curing, smoking, and slicing right up into bacon. I hope you did well on that. I want to leave you with a great quote from our source material today. Knowing which cut to choose can make a huge difference in the final dish. By just remembering our simple golden rule, that less used muscles are tender for quick cooking and hardworking muscles are tough but flavorful for slow cooking, you'll fundamentally transform how you shop and how you cook. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really love breaking down these culinary guides, so please jump into the comments and let me know. What culinary topic do you want me to explain next? Until then, happy cooking.